Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to completely demystify what true wealth actually looks like. It's one of those topics that fascinates literally almost everyone, right? Yet the reality of it is wildly misunderstood by the general public. We're unpacking the really groundbreaking insights from Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko's classic study, The Millionaire Next Door. What we're going to see is that building wealth, it's way more about disciplined everyday financial behavior than it is about looking rich. So buckle up, because we're about to shatter some serious illusions. Okay, let's dive into this. Where are the millionaires who look like millionaires? Now, this exact quote actually came from a vice president of a trust department, and he said this right after hosting a focus group dinner for 10 first-generation millionaires. The guy was completely baffled because these highly wealthy individuals, they didn't look, dress, eat, or act anything like the media's version of a millionaire. And honestly, this sets up the central mystery of our explainer today. If the truly wealthy don't look wealthy, what exactly is going on? Well, that brings us to our first main point, the flashy millionaire myth. Let's take a minute to contrast the media caricature of the wealthy with the kind of boring, frugal reality of true wealth accumulators. You know the myth, right? It tells us that millionaires drive brand new Bentleys, they wear $5,000 watches, and they launch these one-in-a-million tech startups. But the data, it shows the absolute opposite. The average millionaire is actually in their mid-50s, drives a super reliable 10-year-old Honda or Toyota, wears pretty average clothing with no flashy brand names, and operates distinctly unglamorous but steady regional businesses. We're talking auto dealerships, scrap metal yards, or grocery stores. They get way more joy out of owning assets that appreciate in value rather than flaunting liabilities like luxury cars that drop in value the second you drive them off the lot. Now, here's a statistic that is basically going to turn everything we assume completely upside down. 80%, a massive 80% of millionaires in America are first-generation affluent. That means no trust funds, they didn't inherit their money, they definitely didn't win the lottery. They built their wealth entirely from the ground up through their own hard work, discipline, and daily financial habits. They're self-made. And what's really exciting about that is it means the path to wealth is far more accessible to all of us than we're usually led to believe. Okay, here's another incredibly revealing number to put things into perspective. 7%. On average, millionaires live on less than 7% of their total wealth as realized annual income. I mean, just think about the incredible discipline that requires. Whatever their total wealth figure is, they're only bringing in and actually living on a tiny, tiny fraction of it each year. This allows the vast majority of their assets to just sit, grow, and compound over time. They are purposely restricting their taxable, spendable income to build that bulletproof long-term security. And this brings us to an absolutely critical distinction: being income affluent versus being balance sheet affluent. Basically, this is the difference between having a really high salary to spend right now versus actually accumulating a high net worth on paper. See, a lot of people with massive incomes are just income affluent. They spend basically everything they make on luxury goods just to look rich, which leaves them with very little actual wealth. The true millionaire next door, they are balance sheet affluent. They might have a totally normal, lower visible income, but their net worth behind the scenes is quietly massive. So let's break down the two opposite ends of this spectrum, PAWs versus UAWs. First up, we have the PAW. That stands for Prodigious Accumulator of Wealth. A PAW is a master builder of wealth. By definition, their net worth is well over 10% of their age multiplied by their income. Basically, these folks are just the best at building net worth compared to peers in their exact same income bracket. They rank in the top quartile for wealth accumulation, and it's simply because they prioritize financial independence over literally everything else. On the flip side of that, we have the UAW, or the under-accumulator of wealth. This is someone whose net worth is, well, half of what it should be given their age and income. They're hanging out in the bottom quartile. And here's the kicker: high-income, white-collar professionals actually fall into this trap all the time. Because of their prestigious job titles, they feel this immense social pressure to blow their money on luxurious goods, expensive cars, exclusive country club memberships, just to maintain that upper-middle-class appearance. And in doing so, they completely neglect their savings and investments. Now, what's really interesting about this data is when you look at it in terms of relatable human behavior. Let's look at James and Miller. As you can see, they're basically the same age, and they make almost the exact same income, right around $92,000. But check out that net worth column. James, the lawyer, is worth $226,000. He's a classic under-accumulator of wealth. But Miller, the used car dealer, he's worth $1.1 million. He is our prodigious accumulator. And why is that? Well, it's because James spends massive amounts of time and energy maintaining a high-status lifestyle that his profession seemingly demands. Miller, working in a blue-collar industry, feels zero pressure to keep up with the Joneses. He lives simply, saves aggressively, and boom, he's a millionaire because of it. Which naturally leads us to our next crucial topic, the wealth accumulation formula. Where do you stand? Let's walk through Stanley and Danko's actual mathematical formula. I want you to take a quick second and mentally calculate your own target number here. It's pretty simple. You take your age, multiply it by your total realized annual income, and then multiply that result by 0.10, so 10%. That final number? That is what your net worth should realistically be right now. So once you've got that baseline expected wealth number in your head, here's how you interpret the results. If your actual net worth is less than half of that expected number, you're an under-accumulator of wealth. But if your actual net worth is over double that baseline expectation, congratulations, you are a prodigious accumulator of wealth. The whole point of this formula is to clearly demonstrate that building wealth relies heavily on disciplined financial behavior and your saving rate over time. It's not just about your raw income level. Like the old saying goes, it's really about what you keep, not what you make. Let's move along and see how this builds, because the absolute first step towards accumulating true wealth is planning. Let's be real. Prodigious accumulators of wealth do not achieve their status by accident. It doesn't just happen. They get there through careful, methodical planning of exactly how they spend, save, and invest their money. They are intensely active in managing their resources, and their financial lives are strictly ordered. It's like a finely tuned machine. So, how do they do it? Let's dive into the 7 wealth-building habits. Here are the first 3 core attributes that set these millionaires apart. Number 1, they live well below their means. I cannot stress this enough. This is the absolute golden rule. Number 2, they allocate their time, energy, and money efficiently in ways that are specifically conducive to building wealth. They aren't wasting time, they're actively tracking their spending. And number 3, they believe that financial independence is vastly more important than displaying high social status. Essentially, they've taken boring frugality and reframed it as a genuine superpower. Being financially secure brings them infinitely more joy than just looking rich to a bunch of strangers. Now, let's look at the remaining 4 attributes. True millionaires typically did not receive what the authors call economic outpatient care from their parents, meaning they weren't endlessly subsidized as adults. And in turn, they enforce that same economic self-sufficiency in their own adult children. They refuse to spoil them. Next up, they are highly proficient in targeting market opportunities. A lot of times they find specific niches, providing products or services to other affluent people. And finally, they chose the right occupation. As we touched on earlier, this very often means owning steady, unglamorous regional businesses where they can be self-employed. In fact, self-employed people account for nearly 2/3 of millionaires, even though they make up a tiny fraction of the overall workforce. Now, a huge part of this lifestyle really comes down to one core habit. Most of these millionaires succeed through strict annual budgeting. They plan their consumption for food, clothing, and shelter meticulously. But wait, what about the millionaires who don't formally budget? How on earth do they do it? Well, they succeed by creating an environment of artificial scarcity. They use the pay-yourself-first strategy. This means they're investing a minimum of 15% of their annual income the literal second they get it, right off the top before they can spend a single dime on lifestyle upgrades. And this brilliantly illustrates the entire philosophy of the book, summed up in this quote: "They became millionaires by budgeting and controlling expenses, and they maintained their affluent status the same way." I love this because it drives home a crucial reality. The discipline, the frugality, the careful planning, guys, it doesn't just magically stop once you hit $1 million. Wealth maintenance requires the exact same financial discipline as wealth creation. You don't just graduate from being frugal because your net worth went up. So we're going to conclude this explainer with a very provocative question for you to reflect on. Are you prioritizing social status today or financial independence tomorrow? Remember, the flashy illusion of wealth is exactly the trap that keeps most people financially stuck. True wealth, it's hidden, it's quiet, and it is built on a rock-solid foundation of unglamorous everyday discipline. So take a hard look at your own habits, maybe calculate your target net worth, and decide what truly matters to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the real Millionaire Next Door.